I mean, wasn't it interesting that ahead of the next derby, he was asked about it and he said, yeah, I regret it. But then when he was pushed on, would you do it again? He was like, well, I can't say that I wouldn't do it again. It's hilarious. He wanted to let his emotions out and be passionate, which is what Liverpool fans love from managers, isn't it?
It was a little bit Jurgen-esque in that regard. It was the first maybe similarity between the two. And with Abby, like, I've got no problem if the referee's been terrible, go and tell him he's been terrible. If one of their players is celebrating in your fans, go and get him away from your fans. I think that almost endeared them a little bit more because, like I say, Jurgen was so charismatic and he got us and we got him instantly, and he said all the right things, and he just knew exactly how to connect with the fan base. Arne Slot was doing it in a different way, but that was the first time I was like, yeah, fair enough, mate. I can't argue with that one. I would have done the exact same thing in your shoes. So it was nice that the manager's acting a little bit like a supporter, because Jurgen did that more than he had done up to that point. But
he had to put up with a bit of pressure around that period because he had the cup upsets, didn't he? He had the loss to Plymouth, they had the unfortunate night with the penalties against Paris Saint-Germain, and they had the Carabao Cup final against Newcastle. So people were starting to see signs of cracks. What did you think then?
The Plymouth one, as much as I love the FA Cup and they've got some great memories, and for me, beating Everton in the final in '86 is still among my very favourites. But the FA Cup isn't what it was, and I think under Jurgen, one of the problems, if you want to call it that, is we kept trying to win everything, and it kept costing us. We burnt out the squad, we burnt out the team, and ended up falling away in the title race as well.
So do you think Slot prioritised then?
I think you were never going to hear someone from Liverpool say, we weren't really bothered if we went out, but that's how it felt and that's how it looked and that's how it was dealt with. And in a way I was glad, because I thought it is too much to ask to try and go on all fronts. And it was a bit weird that there was this narrative that built up that we were all saying we're going for a quadruple, when I don't know a single Liverpool fan that said that, but apparently we all did.
That might be partly our fault and the media for talking about it all the time.
Well, absolutely. I think there was partly that. I don't think, from my side, from matchgoers, from people I talk to, which is a lot of people, when they think about everyone, through content and then through pubs and whatever else, I know a fair few Reds, no one was talking about quadruples because we'd seen that, end in flames before. So to go out, I just thought blessing in disguise, and I thought the team he put out, there was no risk taken. And then the Newcastle game, Newcastle were better than us on the day, simple as that. And there was a part of me that kind of enjoyed that they got to finally have a moment, do you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm a romantic football fan. I'm made up Palace won the FA Cup. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I love all that. I love seeing people in tears and emotion being there and all that kind of stuff. And I like Newcastle anyway. I'm not saying I didn't want to win. Of course I wanted us to win. And we didn't play well on the day. Newcastle were better than us. Hold your hands up, it's one of them. But we were still taking along all right in the league. And it was like, it was getting described as a wobble and all that. But PSG were brilliant. Like, we were so fortunate in that away leg to come up. It was the biggest smash and grab I've ever seen in my life. It was one of the best games I've ever seen from a goalkeeper in terms of how Alisson played that night. And then we did all right against them at Anfield, and we got to a penalty shootout. Then it could have gone either way, but it didn't worry me that we lost to them. I just thought they're a fantastic side.
Well, wasn't it refreshing to hear him after that just talk about how much he enjoyed those two legs of football, how much he really enjoyed, and said it was probably the best sort of 2 games of football he'd ever been involved in. That was fantastic to hear, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he's one of those. I think he's a bit like us. He's a football romantic. He loves it and he wants to see good games of football, and we all do. I mean, obviously it's not nice to go out to the European Cup, but it was exciting to watch for a neutral, and I guess Slot's just sort of been prioritising the league and thought, yeah, great game of football, but at the end of the day, the Premier League was always the priority. If you have any chance to win the Premier League with Liverpool, you go for it no matter what, because we've only ever had this during COVID in my lifetime. I was born in 2000, so all I cared about for this whole season has been that Premier League title. As much as I love the Champions League, all I care about is the Premier League.
He definitely put his eggs in the Premier League basket, and he was right to do so. It's so hard, It's why City's treble was unbelievable for what it was, because it's so difficult to win one trophy. Trying to win 3-4, it's almost impossible. You need like what City had, which was an amazing squad. He hasn't quite got that yet.
As we entered the final international break, the Reds were still smarting from their cup exits, with a tense Merseyside derby against Everton looming. Liverpool rose to the challenge with a solitary goal from Diogo Jota, the difference to huge relief from the fans. It was a big moment in the season, a potential banana skin avoided. More big performances followed. The Reds staved off a scare against West Ham thanks to a late Virgil van Dijk goal, and it was Trent Alexander-Arnold, whose future at the club was still up in the air, who delivered the only goal to secure the 3 points against Leicester. Those victories meant just a draw was needed at home to Tottenham to clinch the title. Of course, that was never going to happen, the Reds winning emphatically.
A very good evening from Anfield Stadium, where Liverpool were crowned champions of England for a record-equalling 20th time.
The last time the Reds won the league, fans weren't allowed in the ground due to COVID restrictions, so it was no surprise when tens of thousands took to the streets in celebration.
Liverpool last won the league during the COVID pandemic when supporters were denied the chance to celebrate together. So this party is 35 years in the making.
The 3 games that stood out in that period of the season were the Everton game, the West Ham game and the Leicester game. What did that tell you about the mentality of the players? Did it give you belief that they had it in them to get across the line?
Yeah, they were really grinding it out at that stage, weren't they? And you know, that is what wins your titles. There's a lot of people talking about how Liverpool were playing, whether there was a wobble, whether they were going to throw it away. And I'm old enough, unfortunately, to remember all those dark days where Manchester United won title after title after title under Ferguson and weren't that impressive doing so.
They often had that wobble in March, didn't they?
And they ground out so many results, and you know, John O'Shea would pop up or whatever, and you know, and so this was Liverpool's version of that. This was redemption for all of those sad days, you know. So I'd seen that video before, just in a different kit. So I was happy to see it in a Liverpool kit. I was like, this is what you do to win titles. Sometimes you don't play well, but you just find a way. Someone pops up. We saw this flash of old Jota to win us the derby. We haven't seen it enough this season. He hasn't had a great season. You know, there's a lot of Reds talking about, well, will he? He's one of those with a question mark over his head. Will he even be here next year? But for that moment alone, we'll always appreciate and we'll always remember. But you know, your Darwin Núñez pops up at Brentford. You know, you had the now much maligned Trent. Winning the game for us at Leicester. West Ham were really good against us, I thought. You know, like I was like, well, where's this performance come from? From them? You know, they looked great. And I was like, I remember being there thinking, like, why are you turning this on against us? Just let us win, will you, lads? We're going for the title here. So yeah, it was a real show of the credentials, that they were knuckling down, that they were getting it done. They probably knew themselves that they weren't playing Brazil 1970 footy. But it's not about that. It's just about finding a way, getting the result, getting the 3 points, moving on and doing the same again, like United used to do.
And then you come to the final day, and it's Spurs, and it's 5-1, and it's at home, and all the ingredients were there, wasn't it? It was just perfect.
It was just perfect. So I wasn't at the game, I was online, actually it was live. It was amazing because we had people all over the world tuning in, you know, watching. I remember, I said this before, like, within about a space of like 5 seconds, we had a message from a Liverpool fan in Seattle, you know, as far to the west coast of America as you can go. The very next comment was a Liverpool fan in Tokyo, very far east. And we had people all over the world just going, this is unbelievable, best day of my life, can't believe it. It was outrageous. And it was the fact that it was a bit like a procession. Obviously, they score, we score, and then, you know, as soon as the third goal goes in, you know, and then it's a bit like the end of the Tour de France, you know, when they're all sipping champagne towards the finish line and the songs are going, fantastic, brilliant. And then I travelled down to Anfield then afterwards to see those scenes outside. If you could bottle that up and sell it, you'd be a billionaire. You'd never, you know, it was just out of this world. It was 35 years of waiting for something. And sometimes you mentioned it can be anticlimactic. You know, was that it? It wasn't that. It was the opposite. It completely exceeded expectations. It was like just a joy on people's faces. There were tears. You know, there was people FaceTime. Like people, I spoke to one guy and he was FaceTiming his son. His son was in America and they were both crying on the phone and stuff. It was just 35 years of just like emotion. Like, we've missed this so much. You know, hugs and cheers and flares and lads climbing buildings and girls hanging off lampposts. Genuinely, it was like incredible. It's something that'll never happen again. It can't. It'll never be the first time. You know, hopefully they win plenty more league titles, but I don't think it'll ever be that pure outpouring of euphoria, because it was just pure joy. That's the only way you can describe it. Everybody was just having the time of their lives about this football team, and like I say, the last time we did it, we were all locked away and you couldn't really celebrate. The players couldn't be interacting with the supporters. This time, you know, they were all getting their songs one by one in front of the Kop, and Dua Lipa's songs playing, and Free From Desire. It was everything you'd want it to be. It was kind of like, I hope it isn't going to be anticlimactic, and I promise you it wasn't. Like, you'll never ever replicate that. It was just like one of the greatest days of my life. Unbelievable.
I mean, for people outside of Liverpool Football Club who aren't a fan of the club, they'll be looking at it going, well, it hadn't been 35 years because you'd won it 5 years earlier, but they don't understand what it was like to win a title during COVID times. I mean, this meant so much more to you guys this time, didn't it?
Yeah, like I said before, me and my dad during the COVID season were watching it on the telly with tears in our eyes, and this time I was sat next to him in the lower main stand, you know, just watching these goals go in one after another, and he just kept turning to me and going, it's actually happening now. Like, this is actually happening. Because when Spurs got the first one, he was like, oh, we never make things easy. And I was just like, Dad, we've all been celebrating. The magic is here today. Outside the ground, every pub was absolutely booming. Everyone just had that full belief. I'd been on the radio and basically told everyone we'd won it that day before we'd even won it. We just had that full magic around it. All of the atmosphere, everyone in the ground was just ecstatic. And the moment those goals were going in, and I had that moment with my dad to just say, we've done it, it's actually happened. And then the final whistle goes, and I was in complete shock, and I knew it was coming, and we'd absolutely battered Arsenal. You know, we'd gone so many games just winning after win, and you know, that mentality, but it still didn't feel real until it actually happened. That moment in front of me in the ground while all the players, Alisson fell in front of me to his knees. Everyone was just crying, and then I'm crying, and you can never replicate that. That's not the same as what we had in COVID. I was telling myself again and again, no, it is a real season. Everyone's telling us there's going to be a mark next to it, that it's not a real title, you know. But now I understand, like, this is the real thing now. This is that real feeling, and getting to celebrate it with the players, obviously them lining up and singing You'll Never Walk Alone. Just that feeling of us all being together. And I did have a really, really long time after Klopp left where I thought we'd lost moments like that, where all the players would line up and they'd all have that togetherness and that unity. And I had that moment at full time. We'd won the league and we were singing You'll Never Walk Alone to the players in a line, and I was like, it's still here, and it's here bigger and better than ever, and we've all still got that Jürgen belief inside of us. And it was just so nice to see that that was still alive and we were going to be okay, if not more, like Jürgen said. And I got to just have that moment with my dad in the ground this time, and it's just unbelievable.
It's quite a power having a player come and fall to his knees in front of you. Did that happen to you as well, Gareth?
What I would say about it is that, you know, I've been sitting on the Kop for a long, long time. You know, like I said before, I started going back in 1990, and I'm still going now. And there's been very few moments where it's felt like the Kop's actually physically moving. So I wasn't surprised when I seen later that, you know, it registered on the Richter scale and all this kind of stuff, because it felt like it did. It felt like it moved on the Kop. And the only other time really where I would say I felt something like that was Chelsea in the European Cup, on the way to winning the European Cup in 2005. It was unbelievably loud. The emotion, the shared emotion, the shared feeling was unbelievable. It was like, you know, I was on the Kop, and as I say, and I'm hugging this person, that person, and then, you know, even afterwards, like, the one thing I'd always dreamt of around it all is, let's have that moment in the ground where we win, and that means we've won the league. And we got that, and that was special, and it was brilliant, and what a way to win it. And then to just go, what I always said was, you know, everyone had these big plans, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go there. Mine was really simple. I just wanted to go to the pub that I've always gone to, with the mates that I've always gone with, and just, you know, chink glasses and say, won the league, lads. Won the league, lads. And we got to do that. It was plastic glasses because they'd run out of glass. They ran out of drink. Yeah, they ran out of drink round Anfield as well. So I think
the place dry.
I think we probably got one of the last pints from the 12th man. But yeah, it was a special moment because that's what I've always wanted. The sun was shining as well. The streets were lined with people who hadn't even been inside the ground. You know, I get a message off my son who I couldn't get a ticket for to get inside, but he'd just gone down, watched it in a pub, and was around the ground. I never did see him on the day. We kept missing each other. He's like, didn't you see me? I'm like, well, where were you? And he's like, well, when you come out of the Kop, I was on the roof of the pub. It's like, what are you doing up there? Don't tell your mum.